real quick. Well, I say that, but we never know how this will go. Anybody else out here like really doing the deep inner child work and growing themselves up and being mature, conscious human beings? Like, wow. I'm going to tell you how it's manifesting. And it's pretty vulnerable. You know, I grew up in a world, in a culture, in a household where pain and heartbreak and grief was, especially interrelationally, was mostly masked by anger. And probably other forms of shutting down, but predominantly anger. Like drama triangle was strong. And I see that everywhere in our culture. I know it's not just particular to just me, but, you know, vulnerability, true vulnerability when it comes to, you know, interpersonal, especially, like family or romantic dynamics, just, I wasn't modeled that. You know, I watched a lot of fights. I watched a lot of conflict come from people who were hurt and didn't know how to say it, didn't know how to be vulnerable, didn't choose to be vulnerable, and just played a lot of games, you know. And I see this, you know, play out, and I watched it play out in my own psychology, and I'm at this point where, you know, I've created this pathway enough from practice of being able to take space from a place of maturity without demonizing another person. Like maybe there's that initial like protection thing that goes on, but I have gotten so familiar and accustomed to the drama triangle in like consciously, like knowing what that is and how it shows up and operates in our lives and our day-to-day life and our relationships interpersonally, that I'm like, oh, I don't have to go there. Like, I don't have to go into duality. I don't have to go into demonizing another person in order for me to justify taking space. Like, I don't have to play the game. I don't have to play the game with myself. I don't have to get on into my ego. Like, I don't have to do any of it. I can just decide that whatever is happening, I'm trusting this process of going inside of myself and getting clarity from inside of myself, which has been screaming out at me in the form of subconscious, you know, intuitive soul rebellion, it feels like, when I would ignore those things. And so, you know, when you self-abandon because you want to fill the hole inside of yourself from the outside, codependency, blah, 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 through those behavior patterns, you know, things, things get really messy because we mostly operate on the lenses from which we, again, were programmed and see the world as. And a lot of us are running on really outdated programs. A lot of them are child, like, you know, undeveloped parts, like child selves or just ancient things. And I think what I'm finding in this practice, I hope I'm making coherent sense. I never really, I just feel like I don't even know if I'm speaking coherently, so I apologize in advance, but I feel this is where I'm at. I I feel like I'm at this point in my life where I realize like these parts or these separate selves or these programs, they've lived stored into my body and my psyche. And a lot of them just have like PTSD. I think a lot of them do because they're frozen in time. They're not actually present with reality. Because if you're present with reality, you can see the illusion behind the story and that it's telling you based off of something that's not here and now. Even if it's something that looks identical to what you experience, it's like how you handle yourself in that moment and how you choose to perceive things really dictates like your experience, not from the outside. It's you from the inside that dictates your experience and how you perceive something. Hopefully I'm making sense. So, I could have a separate self or a part or a program that is very highly attuned to persecution or attuned to, I don't know, being lectured and having the condescending. I can just be highly attuned and assume that anyone that's like looking a certain way or speaking a certain way is just doing those things, being condescending towards me, or if it's a group of people that don't like me, it's like, triggering this response in my body that I'm not safe, that I'm going to be put on the stake, or I'm going to be made fun of, or I'm going to be embarrassed or humiliated or outcasted, And it's just like when you come into the present moment, you realize like, oh, hey, part, hey, self. You don't even have to talk to that thing, to that self or part. You talk to yourself, capital S, and you say like, you take a deep breath, like, you're scared right now. Or, you're activated. Yeah, you're activated. I can feel it in your chest. I can feel it in your body. Like I can feel that you want to run or scream or hide or hit or yell. And I can feel how overwhelming it is. And you're safe. I've got you. You're safe and I have you. I have you right here. I've got you. Yeah. And, depending on the situation, I mean, this can be a whole series, but depending on the situation, it could prompt you to communicate, more clearly of like, when this happened, I felt this way, and I'm curious, like, what your intention was or what is really going on for you. And you can use your discernment and your senses if you're actually genuinely curious and you've calmed yourself down enough to be level-headed and not with an agenda to your inquiry. Like, this is again a discernment process, but you'd be surprised that the truth that you get from someone, especially if you've built like enough rapport with them, to trust. Like, the world isn't so big and bad. Like, yes, there are forces of evil out there, but the more that I hear people's stories of their experiences of people that were really harmful to their lives, and like actual, like, you know, just like really unwell people that they've had to deal with. I just like it really, I feel a lot of gratitude because either I'm desensitized or I'm really blessed because, like, even though my experiences have been intense with people, it could have been a lot worse. And I think that there's like this process that we're all having to go through of like reframing, because like, do you want to keep living by the self or the program or the part that puts you on the drama triangle of that situation? And it's not to say that atrocious things didn't happen. And I want to be really careful about what I'm saying, because it's not to disregard anyone's experiences, especially if they've been through really heinous, horrific experiences. I'm just speaking about my own. So I can just try to my best to use I language, because I'm really not here to talk about anybody else's experiences but my own, and the lessons that I've gleaned from my own experiences, and being able to see that, like, wow, there's so much power in my perception of reality, and there's so much power in what I give something. And I'm just coming to terms with the fact that, like, I'm really healing and growing and letting things fall away that have needed to fall away. And I'm giving myself the space that I've needed, but I was too afraid to give, because I was letting those parts, the things that I created from trauma, rule me out of like a coping mechanism or a strategy. So I was actually living like not from my full self, which played into my, I think, my desire to want to die, because I wasn't actually living. I had compartmentalized my energy going into living from these parts and not like my true self. And so, yeah, I'm just reclaiming myself and taking my energy back. And I'm realizing that I don't have to go from one spoke of the drama triangle to the other to do that. Like, I can actually open my heart and have compassion and understanding and have boundaries and continue to move forward and feel the excruciating pain of letting that thing that I was once feeding inside of me die. Like starving it out, with love and compassion. Because it's not like I'm like self-hating. It's not like, because I've heard, I'm a part of the assistant and master cohort, and Kim Michaels is the messenger, and I hear Kim talk a lot about like letting it die. And I'm, and this has just been my perception, I think, and I own that. Like, I've assumed that you like let it die and you're cold and heartless and you just like want to kill it, because that's my own filter of like my own self-hatred coming out, I think, as that filter. Because I don't know if he's ever actually said it like that, or said that in particular. He has said like you let it die, but you can also say you let it dissolve by, again, what I spoke on in the beginning of this is like, you come to yourself and you soothe yourself. You're like, yeah, this is intense. This is an intense feeling, just like you would a child, like a baby. You console the baby, like, yep, this is hard. I hear you. Like, I feel that this is intense for you. Like, I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here. You don't feed the thing and its illusions like it wants to. Like, you you can jump into that lens and like want to just like believe it and follow it to the ends of the earth, into the abyss of nothingness, because there's no end. It's just, so I think by not feeding it and not feeding the lies and the illusions, we really can come home to ourselves and reclaim our energy back and our power back, instead of to this thing that doesn't exist that I created from a trauma, Like, I don't want to live my life by that. I don't know about you, but I don't want to live like that. I don't want to live ran by programs. I want to live as my real self and like coming into who I really am, not living by fear. I don't want to be led by fear. I don't want to be in a relationship because I'm afraid of losing something that I'm trying to control and contrive to be for me, because I've controlled and contrived myself to be in it to begin with. Like, not actually being my full real self, because I couldn't be, because that's not how the relationship was designed, I mean, I was myself as those parts, but I want to be myself as myself. And I'm just choosing me at the end of the day. Like, I'm choosing to be with myself and come home to myself, and not feeding certain behavioral patterns or, even, social patterns. I'm not, I'm just trying to do something different, and different meaning like just stripped back a little bit, and not going from one extreme to the other, and not having to like force myself into any sort of box because of my ego and what I'm perceived to be as, and just like letting it be as messy as I need it to be. Whatever this process is, just letting it be as messy as it needs to be. And like compassion for myself through this, and like gratitude. Like, I'm actually learning how to be proud of myself. Like, really, like, really, like, I'm like, gosh, you're doing it. Wow. Like, look at you. You're like getting chills as I say this. Like, you're doing this. Like, you're trusting in yourself. You're believing in yourself. I spent, I'm sure, many years, but like this last 3 years in this particular relationship, I went in and out of deep self-betrayal and self-abandonment and like inner tension because of those choices and decisions, and just, it was a roller coaster, and it's just profound lessons to be learned on the path, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to see like what was really inside of me, like what was really in there, and also things that I took on that wasn't me, but obviously I was holding space for it. So it's like, it feels good to feel like there's no fault. It's just a difference. It's like a differentiation. Like, this is a process of individuation, and it's also a process of like resonance, like learning what resonance feels like, and what feels right and what doesn't feel right. And like, nothing has to be right or wrong. It's just like, oh, that's not for me. This doesn't feel right. Okay, cool. Like, this doesn't, I don't want to, and acknowledging that and honoring that. So 18 minutes. I seem to keep it long. Sorry, y'all. Hopefully you got to this point. I mean, if you did, leave a flower emoji or something, because my perception of the beginning, that was a rough start. So hopefully you stayed until hopefully you got through that, but maybe that's just my own self-judgment. Me and my cat say good night, and we love you, and you're doing great. I know, she's crazy, and it's actually less crazier than you think internally. Like, you'll get there eventually if you choose to accept that process and experience for yourself. Okay. Bye.